Recording in progress.
morning, everybody. I am Marjorie Schuster, Coordinator of Literary Events here at the Temple Emanu-El Streicker Center, and I want to welcome you to our 6th session of Women on the Move. Today, I'm very excited to have one of my favorite authors, Lisa Scottoline, who has written 35 books and apparently has 30 million copies in print. We will talk about her previous book, Eternal, and her upcoming book, What Happened to the Bennetts. I'm very, very happy that Zibby Owens is our moderator. Zibby, the author of, I think it's 4 books at this point. She runs a publishing company. She has podcasts. She has 4 kids. A very busy person. Please write your questions in the chat feature of Zoom. We will try to get to as many as we can. And as always, I would like to thank the Samuel I. Newhouse Foundation for their sponsorship of this series. Right now, I'd like very much to welcome Lisa Scottoline and Zibby Owens. Hi, Lisa. Hi, Zibby.
Hi, Marjorie. And hey, Zibby. Thank you so much for this.
Well, welcome, and I'm going to leave you to have a fabulous discussion.
Terrific. Thanks again.
Hi, how are you?
Zibby, happy International Women's Day.
To you too. What a fun way to celebrate.
To celebrate with someone like you who is so empowered. We're just so happy and proud of you. Speaking as your mom now. What?
That's okay. I feel like a lot of people speak like that. It's really sweet. It's very endearing.
I'm an elder of the tribe.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And I know that we are talking about Eternal today, but I just have to say, What Happened to the Bennetts? Oh my gosh. Like, best first chapter ever. Oh my gosh. I'm bringing this on spring break. I cannot wait to read the rest.
Well, second only to your.
Oh, you're so sweet.
I love the poignance of it. I love the women's voices. It's so apropos for today. So thank you for all you do.
Oh, okay, Lisa, Eternal. This is such a good time with everything crazy that's going on in the world right now to discuss this anew. Why don't you summarize Eternal in case there are some people here who perhaps have not read it yet and must. So tell them about it.
Well, I want to sort of begin by saying where the idea came from, because the inspiration was 40 years ago, as I'm embarrassed to say, but in a way proud to say, because it was when I was in undergraduate school at Penn. I was lucky enough to take a course with Philip Roth, the late Philip Roth. And he taught this seminar, only 15 kids. I actually have a picture of him I wanted to show, because I took this picture. This is Philip Roth.
Oh my gosh.
English 275. In 1975, I hope people were born then. I certainly was. And it was like taking physics from Einstein. He would come in every week and take apart a book, first put it in context, political, social, legal, cultural, and then talk about why this subject, and then break it down. Why this sentence? Someone asked Philip Roth in an interview, why did he become a novelist? And he said, because I love sentences. And I love that, because that's also how readers feel. We love sentences. So he introduced us to the work of Primo Levi, who was an Italian Jewish chemist who lived in the time of Mussolini. I'm embarrassed to say that in 1975, I didn't know who he was. Levi was arrested by the Nazis, sent to Auschwitz, survived to write the incredible memoir, Survival in Auschwitz. Now, I know that this audience, God bless you all, has read a lot of Holocaust literature. You might not have read this, because I think a little bit what Levi does and why Roth wanted us to read it was actually to teach us about voice. Because everybody, if you're writing something authentic, write something in unique voice. And Primo Levi, being Italian to the core, will compare Auschwitz to Dante's Inferno, which he will know chapter and verse, having grown up in Italy. And it's really harrowing. In any event, I never forgot it. And for me, it dovetailed with the personal feeling I have. I identify pretty strongly with being Italian American. If you have a nose like this, like you kind of have to. And I don't really have a religious affiliation. So for me, it was a personal question of how could Italians follow fascism? Why did they follow Mussolini? And that was really the personal question I wanted to answer, and honestly changed my professional life to do it with Eternal. And so the story about, in answer to the question, finally, see, now you see why I'm divorced twice.
No, I love it. Oh my gosh, you are too funny.
Basically, it's the story of a love triangle set in Mussolini's Italy. When the book opens, all of the characters are fascists. You don't know that because they had to be. And what was so unique to Italy is that fascism, Mussolini's was the first fascist party, and fascism did not begin as anti-Semitic. It actually began as a party of business and law and order. People of a conservative bent joined it. And so, although Jews were a minority in Italy, it's really important to note for a second that the Jewish community in Rome is the oldest continuously existing Jewish community in Western civilization. It's amazing. And Jews in Italy joined the fascist party in the same proportion that Gentiles did. So even though Jews were assimilated, there was no anti-Semitism, the mayor of Rome was Jewish, Jews held all kinds of positions in education and law and government. The tide turned when Mussolini sided with Italy. And I wanted to tell the story because me, as a former lawyer and an adjunct law professor, I'm very interested in when laws perpetrate injustice. Mm-hmm. That's the ultimate kind of topsy-turvy, ironic, awful, heinous twist. And that's the story that I wanted to tell, sort of what happened to Jews of Rome during Mussolini's time, how the fascists set up this awful barrage of anti-Semitic laws, and how they actually laid the groundwork for the Nazis to come in and occupy Rome and to basically eviscerate and murder the Jews of Rome. Now, there's plenty of nonfiction on the subject. And just to sum up, my job as a novelist is to make it come to life, is to tell through the eyes of a young girl, which I actually was once. And then the guy who she has crushes on, because we still have crushes, Bradley Cooper, just we'll keep him out of the conversation. But, we have what are her hopes and dreams? What will happen to her during this very, very dark time when her country loses its mind? What will happen to the Jewish families and the Gentiles families during that time? My job as a novelist is to populate this event with real characters that make you understand what it's like to have lived then. Because history does repeat itself. That's the very long answer, Zibby.
Well, on that note, I have actually seen Bradley Cooper in person 3 different times. You will be very jealous. It's true.
Oh,
in fact, 2 weeks ago, I was on Sunset Boulevard in LA and we were in cars next to each other. And I kept telling my husband, speed up, speed up. And I kept peeking over. Anyway, his windows were kind of tinted, but we knew it was him.
That's so cool.
So, yes, that was my main takeaway from everything you said about your book. Because fair enough. The bright lights of Bradley Cooper eclipses everything. No, it's hard. I feel terrible even joking in the context of this story because it's obviously very serious. And, the atrocities are only highlighted by all the events that are going on in the world today. When you think, how can this happen? Right. And how can things change so quickly? The parallels with Putin and Russia and everything and what's going on in Ukraine. How do you feel? You know so much about this period of time after all your research, and talk a little bit about the research you did to inform this book. And then what do you make of, not that you have to opine necessarily, but what have you learned that you feel like is applicable here today?
Well, I've done, I really did the research. I mean, we're all girls who do the homework. And so there's 40 years of it, just pulling all this time, learning, reading everything Primo Levi's written, watching every time he's spoken. He said the most amazing thing, which I'll paraphrase. He said, as long as you think of another person as different from you, then you will think of them as other than you. And when you think of them as other than you, you will think of them as less than you. And in the end, there is a camp. And I think that is so profound because it really explains kind of what happens. And, we say we're joking, but the truth is you have to make it real and you have to talk about nitty-gritty things that might seem trivial, but do not trivialize the subject. For example, here's Elisabetta. She's a main character. Now, we novelists say there's only 2 plots in the world. One is a man goes on a quest, Rain Man, okay? And one is a stranger comes to town, Music Man. Right? A coming of age novel, which Eternal is always going to be a man goes on a quest, right? This is Elisabetta, who's a young woman. She is now, so we're going to really trivialize this for a moment. We're going to talk about the time she gets her first bra. Mm-hmm. And that was my experience, the experience she has in the book. The girls come up to her. She's a tomboy. They go, you need a bra. And she goes, oh my God, I never thought of that before. And that day, I had a great mother. She took me to buy a bra and go to Horn and Hardart, so nobody knows what I'm talking about. But it is important to Elisabetta to come into herself. as it is for all of us, and it happens at all ages. She has two men to choose from. She can't decide which one. But one is, they're both interesting in their own way. And for a minute, apropos to your question, let's talk about Marco. Marco's the guy in the class who is charismatic, has sprezzatura, every sexy Italian red-blooded word. He's gorgeous, he's athletic, he's the most popular, but he has a secret. Modern readers will realize his secret is dyslexia, which, as you love books I see behind you, and I love books you see there, it's heartbreaking for him. I can't imagine it. I do a lot of work for my best friend's a special ed lawyer and we do a lot of fundraising for dyslexia. So I interview these kids, and one says to me, a girl, she says, having dyslexia before you're diagnosed is like feeling stupid and not even knowing why. And I assigned that to Marco because it becomes a point of shame with him. And then it led me to the question that I wanted to answer and the answer to your question. Why did people follow Mussolini? The myth is that he made the trains run on time, and that's a complete myth. Anybody who's been in Italy for 3 minutes knows that nothing runs on time. They don't care about time, like they care about carbohydrates and family. That's all it matters in the world. So I was like, what is it? So I go to the source documents. I start to read what Mussolini said. And when you study his speeches, what he said and why he appealed to people and what he did auxiliary to that, he would say, you are very, very special merely because you are Roman. You were born Roman, and we are the people that conquered the world. He gave them this ultra nationalism. And basically, he also revised the entire plan of Rome so that it snarled the traffic for years, so that people were driving by all of the most important monuments. If you've been to Rome, and I know many of you have, you will go right by the Colosseum. There's the road, a sidewalk, and the Colosseum. Like my house in Pennsylvania has better setback than the road. It's crazy. Then you realize, oh my God, this was intentional. And it started to lead me to believe, because what that said to Marco in particular, I have to make it come alive. It's not nonfiction. It's a guy who feels inferior to his girl who loves books, and his best friend, Sandro, who is a bona fide genius. He's a mathematician. He's a prodigy. His family is Jewish. His dad is a lawyer. And all three families love each other. I mean, ultimately, I wanted this to be a book about love. When you go in answer to your last point, what is today? I mean, the answer, that's why I love a group like this, because this is a group that reads. And I truly think that I believe that reading builds empathy. I am less sure if we choose to read because we're more empathetic, but let's not, that may be true. Yep. Whether we enter it that way, I know that we come out that way, because every time you read a novel, you, as Ann Beattie says, it's a unified consciousness. You're walking in the shoes of another person. You, like Atticus Finch will say to Scout, you have to walk in another man's shoes. You do it, right? Vis-a-vis you and the book. No one else, on a subway, in your room, in a room like this. And so it really speaks to your soul. And that is, I think, what Primo Levi was getting at. The answer to fascism is empathy. The answer is not seeing anyone else as other. The answer is trying to find the commonality and the love. And I think that's what Eternal ends up being about. It's a story of survivors. I never had a book before. And it was weird because these characters go through this time. They love each other. There's romantic love. There's also love of friends. There's love between Jew and Gentile. There's love of God, though they worship in different ways. There's love of countries. The fascists in this book love their country the same way as the anti-fascists, which was true then. And you have to really understand that kind of mindset. But in the end, I found myself with a character that has to give a speech. It's Maria, apropos for today and speaking to you. And all of us, because she's a housewife who, as she says, she never leaves the kitchen, whether it's in this little restaurant they run or her own house. She's the one left to make a wedding speech. I am writing this book. I don't write with an outline. Now you're not surprised because you see me. And I end up with a woman a character that the reader really doesn't know very well. And she's going to make a big speech at the end. Like, I'm just telling you, that's like literary malpractice. Like, you get fired. Like, oh my God, I'm out of a job. That's it. Here you're about to, but then I said, lean into it. Cheryl Sandberg, she's right. And have Maria say, and she says to me, and it sort of came to me by where God looks out for people who don't have outlines. And here she is with a very common problem we all have. She's standing in front of a refrigerator, right? She's giving a speech at a wedding and she looks at a table. At the end of the war, Elizabeth says there were classes before the war, and after the war, the only class is survivor. And here's Maria at a wedding looking for people who are gone. She sees who's there, but she knows who's missing. Zibby, you're young. When you get to be older, you feel their presence all the time. My mother is with me all the time. She is my hero today. And Maria says, this is like when I stand in front of my refrigerator and I know the dish I want to make and I have ingredients, but not all the ones I need. We all know if you cook anything, you never have the one you need. You always have the question, am I going to get in my car and get poppy seeds or not? Maybe. But she says, what can I make with what I have? And when that came out of her at the end of this novel, I said, that's the question for every survivor, isn't it? What can I do with what I have? How can I go forward? For me, the part of it answer came to me from the pandemic. Such an awful time. And it occurred to me, because we lived through it and are still living through it, that people who are living through a time that's historically significant don't know it at the front end. Right? We can look back to March and go, oh my God, I remember when I used to put Fantastic on cereal boxes and do all the things to protect me and my daughter who lives in New York. I'm like, get home. This could last like a month. But what we all did was find our way through it and learn our way through it and ask the question, what can we do with what we have? That's what we see on television now with Ukrainian people figuring out what they can put in what bag and how can these mothers stand so strong for their families and get their kids to survival and life elsewhere. The lessons in Eternal, I didn't invent. This community knows better than any other how important memory is. In answer to your question originally, I did the research and went to the memorial service in Rome for what happened to the Jews of Rome in October 1943. It's remarkable to me, honestly, that Eternal is the first work of popular American fiction on the subject. It's a terrible omission. I'm honored to be able to fill that terrible gap in the literature and in the knowledge, because I know that this community knows there's lots of books about the Holocaust, but not everybody does. And I think there's not enough. Primo Levi will still talk about it from an Italian point of view. There is still people who will deny the Holocaust. So when I went to that memorial services and met survivors and family of survivors there and could see that those wounds were so present and so important to honor, I put those names in the book. Those victims are known. And there were, of the arrest and mass murder of the ghetto, there were 15 people who survived. One woman, Septimia Spezzacchino. She walked out. So, of Auschwitz. So I wanted to honor them. You know, as a lawyer, you have an instinct to set things right. Everybody has that instinct for justice. You have a lawyer, you're a lawyer, like, who can I sue? You know, wow, who can I put in? Somebody should go to jail for this. It bothered me so much that there was no Nuremberg-like trial, globally televised trial for what happened to the Jews of Rome. I actually asked a historian that. He said, no, nobody wanted another Nuremberg. And I thought, that's terrible. So I thought, well, look, I can't sue anybody. The perpetrators are gone. The victims are gone. But I can tell that story. And I can make that real because that's my job. And I think it took everything I had to bring it to life. And it's really the honor of my career to be here today to talk about it. It really is. So thank you for that. It's a gift to me.
Wow. You're amazing. That was amazing.
I'm lucky.
No, that you're like the best speaker ever. I mean, I was just like sitting here completely. I mean, I forgot I was even on a Zoom. This is like amazing. You're amazing. And the emotion behind all of it. And I love what you said about your mom being here today. And, I know I am young, but I have lost a lot of people too. And I'm sure everybody on the Zoom with these times is, just through life, we all feel the absences of those we love and how those people come back. And then to think that not only do you honor the people you've lost in your own life, but all these victims that you've never seen and you've never met and all their families through your work of fiction. It's like magic. It's so beautiful. It's really amazing.
Very kind of you to say that. But I think it's what every reader does. I think every reader can experience what it's like to be someone else. And I think when people look at these images on the screen today and they go, what would I do? What would I put in that bag? When the Nazis came into and I really wanted to illustrate this period of history because the Nazis played this terrible cat and mouse game weirdly and horrifically with the community where they said, if you come up with a certain amount of gold, we won't deport you. And then what happened next was they came in, they sacked the synagogue, they sacked the library, which is an episode illustrated in the novel. It's horrifying. They throw out the patrimony of the Jewish community and Western civilization writ large because it was all stored in the synagogue. As you guys know, if you've been there, it's really a beautiful synagogue. And then ultimately they play this horrible ruse, make a bargain for lives. The Jewish community remarkably comes up with this incredible amount of gold when at that point they had their property taken, their professions taken, thrown out of schools, thrown out of professions, yet came together as a community to try to save themselves. And then the Nazis take them anyway and send them to Auschwitz. I also thought it was important, frankly, to point out the Vatican's role in this. I don't whitewash at all. The Vatican did not step up. The Vatican essentially said, if you can't raise the money, we'll give it to you. I leave to my reader and to you how you feel about that. It is remarkable, too. In the beginning of the book, I got the novel. I got the maps from 1930. I bought the rights. And I put it in the front of the book. You can see it there. And it's actually on my website if you don't have the book. And there's an interactive map. Why does that matter? Why it matters is because you can see the intimacy of the violence. You see how proximate things are for people who haven't been to Rome. There's the so-called ghetto right there. You walk across a little bridge. It's 5 minutes. There's Tiber Island. That's where Sandro lives and his family. There is where Marco lives and have their little bar. 5 more minutes to Trastevere, where Elisabetta lives. 15 more minutes to St. Peter's. The leading nonfiction in this work about what happened during this really dark and awful time is Susan Zuccotti's Under His Very Windows. Her reason for that title is because from St. Peter's, you could see what happened that day to the Jews. They were taken to Collegio Militare, which is 5-minute walk. When I went to that memorial service, it began at St. Peter's. The Vatican was there making a statement. And then we walked from there to the Collegio Militare where they were held. You have to look at that in the eye. I don't think Italy has yet come to account for its role in the Holocaust in Italy. And then happily, there are bright spots that I think the book brings to light too. The love shown, for example, and this is a real little story. There's a hospital on Tiber Island. I went there. I filmed it. You can see the videos on my website. And the day the Nazis came to take the Jews, they put the Jewish patients in a wing. They actually told the Nazis and convinced them how weird and resonant is this, that the Jewish patients had this terrible, terrible airborne virus, which was called Syndrome K. The K, talk about chutzpah. The K stood for Kesselring. Kesselring was the field marshal of the Nazis in southern Italy. And they said, Nazis, if you go into this ward, you will die of this awful, horrible, fatal virus. Those Jewish patients were saved that day by Dr. Giuseppe Borromeo. And when you go to that, and it's a Catholic hospital attached to a little Catholic church, they'll tell you all about it. They did. They take you to the wing. Unfortunately, I couldn't film because it would breach privacy of patients there. But I did film in the hospital. And you realize that they're the people who understood what Primo Levi was saying. They're the people who understood that we are not different. We are not other, and nobody is less than anybody else. were joined at the heart. That's what they got. And I think that's sometimes why Eternal has the title it does, that love is eternal. And that's what we look to. And that's what we try to put in practice every day so that it doesn't happen again.
Wow, joined at the heart. That is a really powerful expression. I think it's so easy.
I just thought of it. I hope it makes sense. I think it does, though. I think
it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's I think there's this temptation when horrible things are happening to other people to say, well, they even the images in the paper, well, that they couldn't possibly love their kids as much as I love my kids, right? Or they couldn't possibly feel this because that would be unthinkable. You wouldn't be able to stand, or they must be, they must not love their parents the same way, or something. Like all these tricks we do so that we can put the paper down and then go run to the school pickup line or whatever we're doing that afternoon. Because otherwise I feel like we would all just be on the floor. Right? You have to
right.
I don't know, this tendency to, but it's false. So I think, you have to come to terms with that.
Right. It's the tendency to look away. But I love to go towards it, to try to understand it, as we all do here. That's why we're on this today. Right. I think it's Sting's song, apropos what you just said. The Russians love their children's too.
Mm-hmm.
The key is not only loving your own children, it's loving other people's children.
Right.
That's what we have to get to.
Yes.
And I am naive enough to think that books can get us there. I am naive enough to believe that the arts get us there. That's why the arts matter.
Mm-hmm.
When you have something that will speak to you as an art form, people, I'm lucky enough, thanks to my readers, to have a career, 30 novels over 30 years. I write thrillers. People don't come to me expecting a book about the Holocaust in Italy. And I'm also petty enough to look at my reviews online, like on Goodreads, and I read them. Now, what's amazing to me, the book is actually the best reviewed book I have to date. But every single one of them will say, there's people who know about the Holocaust and are well-versed and steeped in it. Even those people will say, I didn't know about this. Mm-hmm. But there's plenty of people who didn't come to me for this. They want a good car chase. They're not getting it. But God bless them. They go, I didn't expect this, but I didn't know any of this. This is amazing and terrible. And my job is to sort of bring it down to the grassroots level. Like, for example, food's important in the book. Food's important to Italians. It's important to Jews, really. Joined at the heart and probably the plate. And I said, well, in the beginning, there's so much food and there's so much, and you start to understand, for example, what happened as a historical matter during the time. The Nazis and our Allied bombing campaign was to bomb the breadbasket of Italy. That's kind of about to happen right now, because Italians were told, like Russians were told, like people tend to be told at the beginning of the war, this won't be anything. We'll get in and out, shock and all, here we go. And that isn't what happened at all during World War II. And so the Italians eventually surrender because they were lied to, because they started to understand it. And for me, and we got to see, and you see in the book, that there's so much abundance of food, but in the end, particularly with respect to the Jewish community, the Nazis weaponized food against the Jews. They tried to starve the Jews of Rome. And so I have to show you what that's like. And to do that, we can't tell, we have to show as novelists. So the beginning, you will taste that parm and cacciatore and delicious Italian food until you get to the end. And the tomato sauce is watered down and the portions are small. And that's what war does. And that's what happened to those people then. So you try to make it real in a way that is kitchen table, almost literally. And at the same time, try to understand that there is still hope. As long as there are people who care, there is.
Wow. Well, it's nice to have the optimistic takeaway at the end. We must. Yes. Oh my gosh. When you were writing this book, did you have moments where it was so emotional for you that it was difficult to write through those scenes?
You know what? Absolutely. Like every other page. But the truth is I'm emotionally easy. I wake up I have no estrogen. I don't know why I'm so weepy all the time. When I'm happy, there's a commercial. I'm like, so I mean, it's pretty much there. I think that's not a bad thing because I don't think anybody's going to be moved by something you write. For example, when you write, it surprises you, especially if you have no outline. Like the book sort of has, there's surprises in this book. They surprise me too. And there's one point when the Elisabetta, who has no family and no nothing and must persevere one foot in front of the other, the way we all do every day, obviously with much less hardship. And there's a character who came in. It was like an older woman, and she started making pasta and teaching her how to make pasta. And I was like, oh my God, my mother was a secretary, but every Sunday she made pasta with a cigarette in her mouth, but she was making pasta. And I loved her and she loved me. And I said, oh my God, I start writing this character and I realized it's my mother. Like they say, you're going to turn into your mother. I'm always like, honey, you already have. By the time you had that thought, you are your mother. And somehow you're your daughter too. And because the truth is, as Faulkner has said, past isn't even prologue, honestly. It is conflated. Another reason I titled it Eternal. It was a surprise to me that my mother was so present to me, that she came to save Elisabetta at a time when Elisabetta needed an elder of that tribe to take her under her wing. And that's the source of the optimism. The source of the optimism comes from the hope that's in the human heart. It probably has its own chamber. There's this ventricle and that ventricle, and there's one in the middle that when you watch TV, seeing people leaving the Ukraine, you go, oh my God, what can we do to help them? Who can we donate to? What can we stop buying? What can we start buying? What can we do? Well, what we can do is just know and do something and love. We can love.
And hope that that's enough.
Yes. And maybe a donation or two. I'm donating every day. There's so many organizations. I know that it's doing some good. It's what I can do.
Yeah, me too. We feel so powerless in this situation, but anyway. But then how, Lisa, do you go from the Holocaust and dealing with all of this to then your next book, right? You just have to put that file away and then you open a new document and now we're, with World's Hottest Dad, getting carjacked basically.
It's interesting and it's a legitimate question, but you do the opposite of that because all writing leads to other writing. And in a way, I just learn on the job in front of everybody, so that I know the book is what happened to the Bennetts. It's the story of a family that gets carjacked. Their world changes. They enter the witness protection program. Now that sounds really different, but I guess I got to tell you a secret thing that it is not, because the difference is one of form over substance. Eternal is set in Mussolini's Italy. It is about family and love and justice. And what happened to the Bennetts is set in Delaware, which is 15 minutes from where I live, in modern day. And it is about family and love and justice. We live in these impossibly challenging times. Really. And if you just for a second look at justice, how justice has been, our conception of what is just is daily tested by the thing we have a real hard justice question right now. For a second, a no-fly zone. Justice would say, go in, do it. Oh, do we want a world war? Oh, we got to think about that. What is the just result? What is the ethical result? What is the moral result? What is the legal result? Is a complex amalgam. It's a bolus that you can't even parse or tear apart. That happens also in our own life. For example, take for a second to look at, let's say The Godfather is a really good example of a book that occurs written after this enormous revolution in our time, in our political revolution, in an idea of what is law and justice. Vietnam War, Attorney General goes to jail. That happened. I lived through that. Now, so it's not right. It's not really a surprise that the next work of popular American fiction, which I'm a student of, is The Godfather, because in The Godfather, the world is topsy-turvy. The bad guy is, well, first he's Al Pacino, also super hot. And you're rooting for a mobster and the police are corrupt. We are in times now. We are looking at policing anew. We are looking at the Supreme Court anew. We are looking at the law anew. We are looking with fresh and slightly terrified eyes at every conception we ever had of law and justice. People say our institutions are failing us. I'm not sure about that. I think our institutions are in our hand and we can remake them. Now, that's the backdrop for this thriller. You can't write, here come the good guys to the rescue in a modern day thriller. Nobody believe it. It doesn't ring to me. And I follow Francis Ford Coppola's dictum, who directed The Godfather, and said, nothing in this movie really happened, but all of it is true. Right? That's what you got to get to. You got to go, what is the essential human truth? That's the commonality that the arts give. So if somebody reads it and they go, oh my God, I have that feeling too. That's just like me. That's all you need. That point, that spark of humanity that people recognize themselves and their connection to others. That's what the arts do writ large. So in a way, it isn't the same. It's certainly not the same skill set to go from historical fiction to modern day thriller. I don't buy into any of these concepts. I always was writing on Women's Empowerment Day about strong, independent women just like us, because frankly, I grew up on Nancy Drew. And she was a girl driving her blue roadster everywhere. And she was pretty firmly in the driver's seat. And it wasn't until I got older and started to read a lot more fiction and saw that the women were secondary characters. And in 1994 said, no, somebody's got to change this. And I nominated myself.
We are all so lucky that you did. Amazing. Oh my gosh. Wow.
Well, like all of us, doesn't every woman at some point say to herself during a day, damn it, if I did this, it would have been done right. You know, when do we get to run the world? Well, Zibby, you're getting us there.
Oh, stop.
And I mean that. That is true. This is empowerment. It's true. Marjorie, this group, it's empowerment in action. And we have to find that in ourselves. Nora Ephron said, be the heroine in your own story, not the victim. I love that. That is true. And the more we say that, I think your generation knows it. My amazing daughter knows it. And they are practicing it day to day. And the world will change. We will change it.
Love it. I'm in. Let's do it.
You make me feel so at ease. I forget there's other people. Oh no.
Well, speaking of the other people, they have asked some questions. Should we let them into our little private talk here?
Yes, I'll try to calm down. Jeez.
Don't calm down. I love it. Okay. First one. Lisa comments, my mother left Poland in 1938 and my grandfather was a lawyer who lost his practice when he came to the U.S. I'm often asked how they knew when it was time to leave. And your book is the first one I've ever read that describes the situation and beautifully narrates the conflicted emotions that exist within the family. They didn't choose to leave. Their family in the U.S. convinced them to come for a visit. The rest is history. That was just a comment. But
well, that's lovely. And thank you for it. And I think it really, she puts her finger, thank you, Lisa, on the really critical question I spent some time on. First off, because I hate when people blame victims. Like, don't even do that around me because I'm the lawyer, right? Don't even. But I also wanted to look at, especially with respect to Italy, and everything has to be very specific. It made a lot of sense to stay in Italy if you were Jewish. Jews from all over Europe were coming over to Italy. It didn't, as I say, it didn't have a history of anti-Semitism. So that it made sense. Now, Massimo, a character I adore, is the Jewish lawyer. He's a lot like me in this book. And he believes in law, and he believes that law will lead to justice. Now, I really wanted to make sure that in the end, and it's a decision analysis. They're always thinking every day. I heard him saying on the TV today, should we leave? Should we leave? Should we leave? They want their kids out. First move. And then one day, Massimo is sitting at the table. He's the lawyer for the community. He is helping Jews get exemptions from these awful anti-Semitic laws. And his wife, Jem, is an obstetrician. She is delivering babies, having been thrown out of her job because she's Jewish. They, in their final hour, and it is their finest hour, they decide to stay to serve their community. And I really wanted to make that point because what I saw at that memorial service were family of people, everyday, ordinary heroes whose story needed to be told. And that's why I really wanted to tell. So thank you for the comment. I'm very grateful for your kind words, but I do think it's the apropos historical point that I wanted to make.
I remember always reading all of the, it seems so obvious now when people should have left. But I remember asking my parents, like, why? Why did everybody not leave? And I remember them saying to me, well, Zip, their whole lives were there. You can't it's not so easy to pick up your whole life. And so now every so often I'm like, maybe this is that time when these things happen, when like Pittsburgh or this or that. And I'm like, I don't want to be that person. who the signs are there, but it's because my kid's school or this, my apartment or, anyway, it's always top of mind for me. So sorry, diversion.
No,
okay.
No, I think that's apropos. All the ties that bind us. Yeah. Is this that time? When I was growing up, and especially if you read a lot of Malamud and Bellow and great Jewish authors of that were really chronicling the immigrant experience, their question was, can it happen here? Oh, I think we have answered that question. And so we have to really understand the fascism and the anti-Semitism that is growing. And we need to talk about it and get it out there and read about it so that we nip it before it gets worse.
Yes.
Your question is this the day? It is absolutely the point, Zippy. It's not. It's really to the point.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
I'm sorry.
Okay. There are lots of comments. Where are the questions? Hold on. So many comments. Okay. Well, Barbara wanted to know if you could please repeat the quote by Primo Levi, ends in a camp, something like that.
I saw him say this on a videotape and I can repeat it. I I've been driving myself nuts to try and find it because I want to put it on my website. When I do, it will be up. But this is what I heard him say. In closed caption because it was in Italian and I don't rely on my Italian. I took Latin in school. Great. He said, as long as you think of another person as different from you, you will think of them as other than you. And as long as you think of them as other than you, you will think of them as less than you. And in the end, there is a camp. That's what he said.
Thank you for repeating that. Wow. Okay. Mona says, you are amazing, Lisa. What lessons for life to face what lessons for life to face what is left and move forward? I love your down to earthiness. I feel like I could be your friend. That was from Mona.
You could, Mona. You are now.
Marcia comments, Lisa, wonderful comments about the research and involvement. I have read many books on the Holocaust, but your book pushed me to research information new to me, read Jews supporting Mussolini, Roman Jewish experience, etc. Thank you.
That makes me so happy. That really makes me happy. Thank you.
Oh, Vicky says, love what she is expressing. Hope God is listening as well. Aww.
That's really, well, he is, right?
I
need a religion. Everyone says I'm a Jewish wannabe. I kind of think I am. So, but he is. I was speaking to a JCC and at some point they said, how long do you want to go on? I said, well, you go on. You're the boss. And I was a rabbi and she said, no, God is the boss. And I thought that was so great.
Oh my goodness. Marian says, Eternal was one of the best books that I've read. It was profound and so moving. I'm so enthralled with your way of writing this event. I'm so enthralled with your way of writing. This event today is just wonderful. And Lisa says, I love your dynamism. And Lainey says, wow, one of the best webcasts I have been on. Both of you are so articulate and passionate. I love it and can't wait to read the book.
Estrogen all around, baby.
Michelle wants to know, she says, such an inspiring interview. Will Lisa write more about the Holocaust?
You know what? I just finished the thriller and I am writing about Sicily and I'm writing about the similar issue because I'm looking at Sicily in the 1800s, which was actually the rise of the mafia, which is a real interesting question of law and justice. But what is so interesting about Sicily for our purposes is that it is also a country, believe it or not, that in the Spanish Inquisition exiled Jews from the island. Jews were in every walk of society, in every profession. When the Spanish Inquisition came along, they exiled, tortured, and killed anybody who stayed. Some Jews stayed and practiced in secret, so I'm going to have a Jewish character who will practice in secret. And it's still remarkable, and I didn't even know that about Sicily, and it's remarkable that even today, for example, a few years ago, the Times ran an article because Palermo, the capital of Sicily, because what happened during the Inquisition was they converted all of the synagogues to churches. So it was even hard to find a synagogue. The Torah, the stuff that was taken, the arks, the everything, the scrolls, everything taken, destroyed. So now Palermo, the capital of Sicily, is trying to invite Jews to come back. Even today, they couldn't even get a minyan. This is a modern day island, part of Italy. And I want to write about that because it's a perfect example to me and a horrific example of when law perpetrates injustice. So I'm writing about the title is sacred. And I think it's another important story to tell.
Oh, okay. Susan asked,
am I in this job? I am so lucky.
No, it just, when you look for it, all you can see are these terrible things that have happened over time. And that can feel kind of heavy and overwhelming. So you have to grab onto these wonderful stories of selflessness and love and compassion. Otherwise, it just can weigh on you and make it feel like something bad is constantly imminent.
I know, but the answer,
right?
it becomes the answer to what can you do? Because what you can do is know about it, tell it, and keep hope alive. And that ends up being the thing that
you're right.
The thing that defeats it. Not a gun, a book. How incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, not to like.
Maybe they could start making bulletproof books, and you could just strap them to yourself. Then you could literally make it anyway.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Susan asks, why did you choose to create chapters from each character's point of view rather than tell a linear story?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think it does tell a linear story. I never jump back in time, except once. There's one or two flashbacks. But I love to immerse myself in who this character is. I don't know it at the outset. I just feel them out. Like, for example, the book, if it's a love triangle, it's which guy is she going to choose? The great, handsome, sexy one who's kind of cool, or the thoughtful Sandro who listens to her. And I'm not going to give anything away, but a man who listens has a great pull for a girl who's talkative, which is kind of me and kind of who isn't. And but to really get inside a character's head, the character, it sounds a little woo-woo, but the character's going to reveal him or herself to you. And to do that, for me, I have to be in her head and his head. I have to understand and to a certain extent channel how he would react in any situation. So what you do is you start the book. Well, here's what happened. Here's her choice. Who am I going to kiss? Which boy is going to be my first kiss? And then Sandro kisses her. She thought she wanted to kiss Marco. What next? How does Marco react? How does Sandro react? Those characters they grow into who they are as we do day to day. And they also inform the narrative of the plot and the plot itself. It's so fascinating as a quick aside that when people talk about plot and character as being different and voice, those things are all the same at the same time. So you can't do it any other way but to be in that person's head. And then the reader really knows that character and really cares whether they like him or not. I mean, Marco, you're going to have a crush on at the beginning until you realize he's a fascist. And you're going to go through the same identity crisis he does. At some point, he says, I am not my uniform. And I wanted to look at that zone of complicity because that's very much relevant today, isn't it?
Yes.
There are people who will tell you, I'm not a racist. But they'll vote for something that is racist law. Well, if you are okay with racism, are you a racist? I leave that to you to answer. I'm very secure in my answer. And Marco struggles with that because Marco starts to understand what fascists are doing to his best friend, Sandro, and a family that he grew up loving. And he thinks he can keep them alive and kind of live in that gray area until he understands he can't. And Marco became, for me, the answer to it. You'll see them work through. How did we get this so wrong? Why did we follow this megalomaniacal madman? Why did we kill for him? Why did we think we were killing for ourselves and our country? That is what this book is trying to take you through, that because I had to take me through it. And you can only do that in the character's viewpoint. You can, and I feel their remorse for it. I wish it were more, I wish that it was written larger, but I can't run Italy. I can only tell the story that I read.
I think that through your last books and this book and everything, we will gradually be able to tease out exactly what you're looking for in a man yourself. I think you're leaving secret clues.
Just a pulse and a guy who's not threatened by somebody. How about that? The first date is always like, somebody will say something like, you're quite a handful. You're quite a handful. I'm like, I know. Isn't it great? Why would you want to be with a woman who is not a handful? And then you go, all right, you're not for me.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Sorry,
Let's see.
A little personal.
No, I love. Are you kidding? I'm totally fascinated. I mean, I find it actually very interesting. A man who's not threatened. I mean, it does take a certain type of man not to, put his own mishigas aside and all of that.
Exactly. I don't need your mishigas. I got my own mishigas, dude. Bring some to the table. Well, you never convince them of that. They're always scared.
More pasta, less mishigas.
Pasta with a side of mishigas.
Yes, exactly. Okay. It says mania, but maybe it was Maria. I'm not sure. Agatha Christie apparently wrote her books backwards. She wrote the ending first and then worked her way backwards to the beginning. In your case, you make it up as you go along. Do you know the ending of your novel as you are writing it?
No, I do not know the ending. I don't know how it ends, and I don't know how it middles. I don't know what happens next.
It's amazing.
In my defense, because it sounds really kamikaze and probably is, you can only do what you can do in this world. So you have to do it your own way. Mm-hmm. And also that, if I had an outline, I think if I wrote it, it would be like, I always think that's like literary Mad Libs. I don't want to fill in blanks every day of my life. Like, this is where I work. There's my desk. That's just research books. I have books in every room of this house, as Zibby does, and probably many of you do. So I am nervous. Like, this is how I am. I have a cup of Dunkin' Donuts coffee with extra cream, extra sugar. You could tell the extra sugar. And I am, oh my God, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next every day until I have a first draft? Now, Hemingway says, write drunk, edit sober. I don't follow that per se, but I get the idea. You want to get the story down. You don't know how it ends. You're vitalized by it. You're energized by it. You're electrified by it. You weep. Of course you weep. If you don't weep, if you're not crying at some point, wow, you're not moving. You're not going to move anybody if you're not moving yourself. Mm-hmm. And so you go through this incredible emotional experience and anxiety producing. And then you can deep breath when you get done. And you just have to make the book better. I say, get it down, get it good. But so I don't know anything in advance.
I interviewed Rosie Walsh yesterday, who just wrote this new book, The Love of Your Life, and or The Love of My Life. Anyway, she said she writes in white font so that she can't even see what she's writing, so she doesn't edit herself too much. Isn't that funny?
I get that.
You know what I mean? You can't even, you just have to get it down, and she can't even watch herself do it. And you
can't. Because first, editing is easy. Editing is just make the sentence better, and that's easy. And also, you could spend forever editing a chapter that does not survive.
Okay, Vicky asks, do you write your books via computer keyboard, or do you record your writing? Do you record your writing due to your incredible high energy, articulate, and love of talking? Do your words flow faster verbally than your ability to type fast?
How nice is this? The answer is I do. I'm a very bad typist. Honestly, sometimes I do dictate. I dictate, and I have that Dragon software. When I do it, when it's a really emotional thing. Because you don't want to be writerly about that. Good writing shouldn't show. And also, I think it's really apt question with respect to a novel, because it's a story. We love to tell stories, especially women. I'm in any ladies' room, I'm going to tell a story. Somebody else is going to tell a story. You're going to be talking about underwire bras in the first 3 minutes of any conversation with me. We just open up and tell stories. So I am always at my best when I'm in my house. I live alone. I have 3 dogs. They're like, she's talking to her computer again. But also, I think you have to, you say the words, and it will always sound natural. I always think, especially as an editing process too, that it has to sound like a tumbled stone. It can't sound like, oh, look at me, I know this, I studied for the SATs too. It's a trick with a book like The Eternal, because I wanted the whole experience. Like I said to them, put cotton in the cover and make the font all old. And I studied period fiction. I'm out of Italian literature in translation, obviously, to they don't use a lot of contractions. It has to be realistic to its time period. That can sometimes read a little awkward, but otherwise you don't get the full immersive experience as a reader of living in that time. And I want to think that it all worked together to give you that experiential read, which is what I was going for.
I agree. I think sometimes it's great. You're making my role here easy. I feel like sometimes sentences can be distracting, and I'm like, you're taking me out of this, right? When it's in a movie where something's so artsy and you're just wait, now I'm not the character anymore. But anyway, okay, last question, exactly. Right? It's distracting. Do you write do you write on a schedule? This is from Barbara. Do you write on a schedule a certain time each day or just whenever you like? And also I'm throwing in Martha's question. On average, how long does it take for you to write a book?
I write every day of the week. I start at 9:00. In first draft, I do 2,000 words a day. That's about 12 or 15 pages, something like that. That will take me, a lot of times it will take till 7:00. A lot of times it will take till 11:00. I walk the dog somewhere in the middle. I always get good ideas if I walk the dogs or take a shower. I do more dog walks than showering. I shower for you guys, but that's not happening. I was like, oh God, Lisa, just take a shower. But, so now I forget the question. I got embarrassed talking about before.
It was, do you write on a schedule and how long does it take to write a book?
My schedule's every day. Now, Eternal, I was doing 2 novels a year and I read a humor column, which you can read on my Facebook page if you don't subscribe to the Philadelphia Inquirer. It's called Chick Wit. It's just about like having fun with Zibby like we do. And so Life as a Woman. Somebody's got to tell that story. And so until Eternal, I was writing 2 novels a year. So it takes 6 months to write a novel at that pace. For Eternal, I was a little nervous and it was such a difference. And I had to change so much about my life and I moved houses. I have a new editor. And also I really had Sheryl Sandberg's words in mind, lean in, because I didn't know if I could write in a different genre. All of my books were a narrow focus, 3 days, one family, usually in the Philly suburbs. And I was like, this is such an important subject. Can you do it, honestly? I mean, I'm here to tell you I'm a little insecure. And then I thought and then in Lean In, she said something like, women tell themselves they're not ready. We don't like to say we can't take risks. We say we're not ready to do it. And for a long time, I said, I'm going to write that book about the Holocaust in Italy, but I'm not ready. I need more research. I need more homework. And finally I said, if not now, when? And you get to be the one too. So write it. I hope there are more people writing about the Holocaust in Italy. I hope we understand each and every story because it can only add to our understanding and it can only make us make sure that we spread all the love and the empathy and arts we need to make us understand that we really are just one big world. And those people in the Ukraine trying to decide what to put in that plastic bag could be us. And we don't want that to happen.
Oh my gosh. Amazing. Well, for anybody watching who wants more Lisa, which I'm sure you all do, Lisa has, what is it called? Live with Lisa on her Facebook, Mondays at 7 until her book comes out on March 28th. What Happened to the Bennetts? So get your next installment after you all devour Eternal. Lisa, thank you. This was so fun.
You are so wonderful.
You should have a podcast. Do you not have a podcast?
No, I just talk to you once a year.
You need a podcast. We need to discuss.
Thanks so much. And Marjorie, thank you too.
Thank you, Marjorie.
Thank you for being here.
Both of you are very welcome. That was probably the most enjoyable session we've ever had, although they're all very enjoyable. But that was fantastic.
Thank you.
I really hope you come to see us in person. Please, you must come to New York when we're back up and running in the fall. Although we do have,
I'd be honored. I'd love it.
Good. We do have in-person events now for everybody watching, but yes, we would love to really plan something with you in the fall. That would be terrific. You are so much fun to listen to. And Zibby, what can I say? As always, obviously, your interviews are wonderful.
Thank you.
So thank you very much to both of you. I would like to say next week at this time, we have Allison Pataki, who wrote a wonderful book. It's about Marjorie Merriweather Post, and it actually is her birthday, Marjorie Merriweather Post, March 15th. So that was how we decided to do it on that day. So we hope to see you all next week at 11:30. Lisa, thank you so much. Zibby, thank you so much. And thank you all for being with us.
Thank you all so much. And thank you, Marjorie and Zibby.
Thank you.
Take